folks, another great time, another great week. We got our Senator Eric Buxton. We just talked about a little bit of wrestling here in our schools here. But, folks, we're going to talk about Delaware today. Our home state of Delaware, what we're going to have going on, how we're going to get it better, things that we need to kind of work on. And guess what? You know, it's going to be a great time for folks to just get some good information, get a side that we understand. And guess what? Get folks out here just to start incorporating into this thing. You know, we was talking last night with some folks, Senator Buxton, about the 2030 regeneration of Dover and stuff. And Todd was showing us those pictures. I mean, it was so exciting to see that we're going to be able to clean that place up. We're going to have some good cafes. It's going to be a place where we can go shop and we feel free. I mean, I know some people, they felt that, hey, you know, what's going to happen to the homeless down there? We're going to figure out they're either going to have some options to do what they got to do, but we're going to build businesses. We're going to build an economy, and we're going to have some place good to be able to call home again, you know. And Senator Buxton, I know you done seen a lot in this place. And one of the big questions that we face is that downtown looks lonely. And what do we need to do to bring it back to where we still can be vibrant, where people can say, hey, you know, I want to go and hang out here.
Yeah. You know, I was just in Tampa yesterday. So much bigger scale, but still the similar aspects of it, right? And what do they have to offer? So they've got business, they've got opportunity, but what they also have is culture and experience, right? So, and that's what you got to bring back to downtown. You got to want folks to want to go downtown, not just to maybe purchase something down there, but to experience things down there. I know that Todd and his group and others know that, and they're trying to do that. But there's no question about it. When you have to understand and deal with the fact that folks living in the suburbs, and, you know, even though Dover's a small city, there's still suburbs out there, like the one I'm in right now. I'm right down the street from my house. We don't have to come downtown anymore, right?
Right.
So if we're going to come downtown, there's going to be purpose and opportunity. There's going to be, you know, culture. So you see it, right? You see it when folks come down for events, which is what they're trying to do. But events are not enough of a lifeline, right? You need the daily, day-to-day. If you don't have these major corporations and businesses down there, then what is the purpose of folks coming down there? It means you've got to have inviting shops. You got to have cool experiences, cool climates, all that kind of stuff. I always say, and I'll be quick, but you're trying to attract doctors to come here. We have a shortage of doctors in Kent County and across this state. And I always tell folks, you know, if you want doctors to stay here, it's no different if you want people to come, you know, come here. People coming here that choose to live here, they want three basic things, right? They want cultural experiences, the arts. They want good schools that produce quality education, and they want safe communities. Those three things are really, really simple for folks. And if they're not going to get them here, they're going to go somewhere else. Right now, we're struggling in Kent County. We're struggling in the state to make sure, like a place like downtown is actually a safe area to go to, that the district has schools that are supportive and good schools, and that there's experience, there's cultural experience out there.
Yeah, and that is very important, especially when we going down there, you know, and we always talk about it. How can we bring it back? You know, Todd was telling us a little bit about all the stores that used to be down there. And, you know, he was growing up. He like, you know, we was shopping, you know, clothes shopping.
You had Sears down there, man. You had some of the best places down there, but the world's changed. Like I said, I mean, you go down there and, you know, these kids of the day don't understand with Amazon. You know, you showed up at the clothes store, you got your clothes for the year. You sucked it up. If the knees went out, mom had to put patches on them. Figure it out. Sneakers, you know, we got tennis shoes. I don't know what sneakers were. They got invented. We got Keds.
Right.
With bleach.
Right, and stuff like
Anyway,
that. And he was talking about this too, and you know, and I told him it's a special sentiment to me. I don't want to see people homeless, but I want it to be real homelessness.
yeah,
And what we talk about real homelessness is that we can find a place where people, regardless if they're recovering from drugs, if they're recovering from addiction or whatever, that they find a place that they can have them set up to go so they can be able to have some place to live. And guess what? Have portion, and Todd talked about part of it, a portion of it's going to be affordable and workforce housing, which I thought was great, 20%, not 100%, but 20%, because everybody deserves to,
yeah,
have that
right,
basis. And
right.
and I said this is going to be a good time that we need to start telling folks, how can we get to the root cause of what's happening down here, and meet with these folks so we can be at an even kill to get it resolved.
So in my position, right, when I see the addict, and I had this conversation just the other day, the addict's there, and I understand the addict in front of me, but what I see is the family behind him. I see the community next to him, right? And that's what I see. And I see a failed system that's only focused on the addict, meeting the addict where they are and accepting the terms of the addict. And I
Mhm.
disagree. Or
Right.
the folks that are mentally ill, right? These folks are sick. We need to provide services that help them. And right now, the state is lacking, and we've got to do a better job. But I don't believe that the solution is to provide the resources that allow the person sick on the street to maintain their existence on the street. To me, that's
Mhm.
a failed model. That's a broken model. And I've said that, before. I said the same thing with the ladies who are out there. I had a lady out there. She was doing the Dola services where they meet the lady, and she was talking about these girls and they're sick and they're pregnant on the streets or battling addiction. And I said, to me, if I was in charge and I have some legislation to deal with it, that's not an option. If you're with child, to me, we need to take control until that child is born, so that that child doesn't get born into instantaneous challenges, right? That are if left unchecked, the mother, because of her illness, will present to the child to the child's being, born addicted to drugs and all these other things. So I think we got to take control, because when you see the addict on the street, I see the unborn child.
Mm.
And
Mm.
again, it rubs folks, because there's folks maybe listening now or who will listen later to this.
Mhm.
I accept it, because when I say these things, there are folks that have had their way with this conversation where they don't agree. They believe in the model of what I disagree with, and they
Mhm.
have won the moment. They have they have controlled the narrative, moved the needle, because they say, well, let's meet the addict and support the addict where they are, the person sick on the street where they are. I say, let's go get the addict and let's get them the help they need. But
Mm.
we're not going to accept the terms that they get to pick and choose, because remember what I said, behind that person is a family that's being crushed by the addiction. There's a community that's being harmed by the addiction, and the model isn't working.
Right, and Ford and stuff, and I guess this thing been there for a while, so we don't have nothing in place at the current time to provide any type of support for these folks
Right?
that's going through that struggle, and it'll be a good time to come to some resolution to
Yeah.
have something for them to
Yes.
get right,
Well,
for.
when City of Dover was considering their ordinances for panhandlers,
Mhm,
and someone asked me, and I said, I don't support it. And they said, wow, I'm surprised. I said, well, you didn't let me finish. I don't
mhm.
support it until we have a place for these folks to be either offered to go or involuntarily committed to go.
Right,
And that rubs people the wrong way, but that's just what I believe in. Until you have a location for these folks to go who are sick and ill on the streets,
right.
where are you going to send them? Where are they going?
Mhm.
They're existing in a way that you're permitting, right? If you just simply ban it, you've still got the issue. They're still there. You still haven't helped them. All you've done is hid them. And I don't want to hide people. I want to help people. And
Right.
so that's what I said when I said I don't support the ordinance. If they can show me where we're sending them, and I think we do have the ability to develop the models that do, right? Then I'm all
Mhm.
in. I had a conversation just the other day with the governor. It was just an impromptu meeting, but he brought up the Hope Center. And I clearly said to him, sir, I appreciate you asking, but my vision and your vision are slightly different. I want
Mhm.
a Hope Center, right? I don't want a Hope Shelter, right? I want a
Mhm.
place where folks are being assigned to get the help they need. I don't want a homeless shelter, right? Because all you're doing is centralizing folks and we don't have enough of the support. So that's what I told him. I said, you need to bring back the Morris Correctional Facility so that the courts, the drug courts, have an effective tool to use to send folks to get the treatment they need, not the treatment they want, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Understand that again, because I'm tired of this. Well, they got to want it. Yeah, you know what? And that's true. But if you provide the clarity and you take away the option or the choice, many of them begin to want it. Now, the key to that is once they go through that struggle, you got to have purpose at the other end. These folks, we need to provide purpose for them, which are connections to jobs, connections to homes, connections to a life, right? Just offering them sobriety, it's easy to get sober. It's hard to stay sober.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
got to give them the options to stay sober. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for
So,
and probably we don't have a center like that where we can have folks that, need to be in recovery.
well, so we need to get, I told them we got $100+ million coming to this state through the Rural Health Care Fund. Everybody talks about the big, beautiful, big bad bill, whatever you want to call it. What they forget in that whole mess up when you had folks from Democrats, Republicans fighting is in the Rural Health Care Fund.
Mhm.
Ancillary section of that bill was $50 billion set aside for states to use for rural health care. Now, here's the beauty of that, right? Delaware, because of the way they wrote the legislation, is equal on the same footing that a place like Texas is for the first percentage of it, meaning Delaware is going to get nearly $700 million over the next 5 years if we're successful in our grants. $700 million for rural health care. And here's the better trick. And because Sussex and Kent are classified as rural and Newcastle technically isn't, if you remember when we had the ARPA funds,
Mhm. Yep.
Newcastle got their own set of money. That's how they built the Hope Center. They got like 350 million, right?
Wow.
Newcastle did. Kent County got 35 million. I think Sussex got 38 million because Newcastle was considered a metropolitan county because of the population. So they got all this money to do what they wanted to do with it. The reverse is happening this time because it's
Mm.
a rural healthcare, right? So that
Mhm.
means that Kent and Sussex should be the main beneficiaries of this money coming into the state, which is why I said to the governor, we've got to build a detox center of our own that's on scale with the problem that we have.
Right. Right.
Then you got to create secondary to that these other locations. I know they're talking about buying the Sheraton, the old Sheraton from Dell State. I told him a better location might be the place right there that the state already owns, right next to the car wash in downtown Dover.
Mm.
You got 40 rooms right there you could repurpose. So we have options, is what I'll tell you. We've just got to get the right people, the boat rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, yeah, and that makes sense. That's a good idea to have that available for these folks out here because I think part of us regenerating that city
Yeah,
is finding how we're going to maneuver to where we can come out there and we can want to walk and shop and feel
yeah.
comfortable, have some type of entertainment and stuff.
It,
Um,
it's not going to work. You're not going to bring Dover back until you deal with and listen, don't dance around it, man. We get too many people concerned. the addict on the street isn't offended by what you say. They want help. So
Right.
instead of dancing around it, man. Oh, we don't want to stigmatize. We don't want to offend. We don't. No, we want to help. Don't get it
Mhm.
twisted, right? And
Right.
people aren't coming downtown until we get them the help they need.
Yeah, and that's key because with the growth and stuff that we have, it's so many things going on. Even looking at the buildings and the businesses and putting some more jobs,
Yeah.
here for it and stuff. And that was one of my big questions. Why can't we bring some of those big industries back to Delaware so we can have more jobs in place for
So
us?
every state, every city, every town, whether it's in Delaware, whether it's in California, or any state in between, all has that same problem, right? We're all trying to attract. And so these companies obviously are portable, right? They get to pick and choose. And there's only so many incentives that we can offer to a relocating industry, right?
Mhm.
They do their studies. They're the ones that determine, where are we regionally located so that we can, disperse product or make product. Do we have, well, I mean, one of the biggest things that these industries look at is there an available, ready, and willing workforce? So they're going to come in with factory jobs. Is there a ready and willing workforce to fill those jobs? And many times it's harder to find them in a county like Kent than it is maybe in a more populated area like Newcastle. So, hard to bring them in, but I do know there's people that work very hard at that are in this space.
Yeah, for it and stuff. And it's going to be hard to show them that the value's here because what that's going to increase is I want to talk about our schools.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody said, man, we the lowest at the barrel. It's not going to get better. you
Yeah.
know and, and
Yeah.
I want to be optimistic here, and I want to say it can get better. We just got to find out a solution of what we need to do
Right.
to get it to that next step. Growing up, I always thought sports bring and activities bring kids back to school.
Right.
Having some form, those programs that we probably don't have for them to do something, but being able to train them.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that village,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that we used to raised on and everything to increase our school and make it better.
So, I'm going to break it down to you, and it's old school for me.
Hmm.
And it's again dancing around the homeless situation or being more direct. It's dancing around the problem in education or being more direct. When we
Hmm.
talk about a village, you can't be a village anymore because the only time parents show up is when there's a problem, right? They don't want to parent
Mhm.
until there's a problem. And normally there's a problem because somebody in the village tried to raise their child for them because the child was out doing things not they shouldn't have been doing. And now the parents showing up with a problem. And it's like, come on now. Either you have to do your job and raise your child, which means not just discipline, but academically speaking and support. And if you're not, then you're going to let us do it. But then you can't get sideways on us when we're parenting your child or correcting your child, right? Back to basics is all we got to do to bring this thing back around. You mentioned what you said was, and I don't know, you're spinning right now, my friend. So can you hear me? I'm gonna wait on you because I don't know if you're ghost on me right now. I don't know if everybody else is watching, but hands free right now, right? So don't get on me. I'm about a mile from my house. Johnny B, I don't know if you can hear me. Okay. Hey, now I can't hear you again.
Oh, that's because I was on mute. Here he is right here. Oh, my God.
What happened?
He went off and came back. Hopefully he'll come back in. I don't know what happened to you. Would it went out?
Yeah, it just went out.
All right, here he is right here. All right, we're going to cut that out. Here we go.
Sorry
Got
about that.
good?
We lost you for a minute. Yeah, but
Hey,
you was mentioning about the village, um, with the we don't have a
yeah,
village no more.
we have it, but it's been neutered, man, because in my opinion,
Yeah.
people are afraid to step in, look out for the child and do what's right. It used to be that, the parents sent their child off to school and if the child needed to be corrected academically or, behavior wise,
Hmm.
that was part of the deal. And then the kids responded from that and they benefited from it. What you're seeing a lot of now is if you ask the educators, if you ask the administrators, a lot of it, what you're seeing is that the folks that are running the schools are kind of, they're afraid. And, man, if you haven't seen it, there was
Hmm.
an educational summit. I'm getting ready to pull into my driveway, but there was an
Yeah.
educational summit that they had a lady was old school, man. I mean, she was inner city Chicago, and they're speaking to a huge group. And basically, what she said was that what she say? She said the teachers are afraid of the administrators are afraid of the parents are afraid of the students, and the students aren't afraid of nobody. I said, God darn right, man. That's where we are right now, man. It's like we got to put the grown-ups back in charge. These kids will respond to it, but you know,
And and how did we come so far off? I remember growing up, Senator Buxton, that you couldn't let another adult see you, or you didn't want that teacher to call home because it was going to be
exactly.
problems.
Yeah.
But
And now look, now the parents don't want to call, the teachers don't call home because then the parents are going to be like, well, what'd you do wrong to the teacher? It's like, wait, what? How's this working?
yeah, and I think that's where we got a flawed system, as we know we don't have no direction, and somebody have to step up and talk to these parents and say, hey, either you're going to allow us to teach and provide that discipline that's necessary for your child, and then
Yeah.
we get to move forward. You can't come and run a roost in this place and think
Yeah.
that that's going to be all right.
So, yeah, man, we've talked about this before, but behavior at an early age is so important. And what we've gotten wrong, we are literally allowing children coming from challenging, environments or just environments, whatever, and they're being disruptive and they are searching for the structure that schools used to provide, and the schools aren't doing that anymore. They're now kind of just accepting, behavior, whether it's tantrums or outbursts or whatever, and just trying to let the child kind of calm down, come back into their own. And that disrupts the learning for the other children. And it also sends a message to the other children that, you know what? I get to act that way too. I get to be noticed in front of my peers as well now. And so the process becomes kind of bad when all the child really wants at a young age is just that structure. They really crave it, man. When I was teaching in the early 90s at Poly, man, we had some of the toughest crews. And then, you know what? Bottom line is those kids came from tough environments. And when you implemented a structured, caring environment, that's the key. You got to be able to care through tough love. And we're afraid to do that now. We got this soft parenting, soft teaching, soft discipline. That stuff doesn't work. You know, in my opinion, it doesn't. But that's a little different. I'm going to get over on the other side. So that's one aspect of it. The other side of it is you mentioned test scores. You mentioned where we are as a state. Here's the problem. Number one, a lot of that testing comes from using the SAT to determine educational knowledge. And the problem you have is the SAT is a college entrance exam. A lot of kids, in fact, the majority of kids aren't going to college or are going to a college that doesn't require an SAT. So we're having those kids take that test. They're not trying because they know they don't have to pass it. They don't even have to try. So they're literally getting low scores, if not zeros. And then we're quantifying that data and saying, man, Delaware has terrible SAT scores. Well, yeah, I don't care if you gave it to grownups. If you, my friend, were working with 30 other teachers, or I don't care, other fellow employees, and they said to you, hey, we want you to take this 4-hour test. Doesn't mean anything. Nobody's going to know your score. It's not going to be counted against you. But we want you to try hard, you know, and we're not going to pay you. We're not going to do anything. Come on now. People are going to look at it. Kids aren't stupid.
Yeah. You sugarcoating it and you playing it down.
Yes. And same thing happened. You know what happened? Here's the big one, man. And this one is really complicated, but important. And I've said it in front of a lot of people. It's starting to catch traction. There's a thing out there called the Mississippi Miracle. That's where the state of Mississippi went from next to last in the country in reading scores to in the top 10. And it took them over X amount of years. And everybody said, that's fantastic. What'd they do? Well, basically what happened was when Delaware and these other states jumped on board and implemented these crazy best practices, new ways of teaching reading, Mississippi decided to back off of it and went back to the basics of reading. Okay. So they went back to the basics of reading early on in early elementary. But then what they also did was any child moving into the 4th grade or coming out of 3rd grade did not get promoted to the 4th grade unless they could read at grade level. It was a huge decision because what Delaware did was we implemented these new frontier gibberish ways of teaching reading, which was ridiculous. And we also socially promoted kids, which said, well, just because you can't read at grade level in 3rd grade, you'll catch up. So we're going to move you to 4th grade. Yes, the 4th grade, they moved into 5th grade. Now they're in high school and they can't read. And you're testing them saying, well, these kids can't read. And we're like, no crap, they can't read. They told you that in 3rd grade. You did nothing about it.
Right.
So that's the rub. We need Delaware needs to go back to the basics of reading, which we have. Last year, we passed legislation going back to the science of reading, something I call basics. What we have not yet done is convince them that you still have to have the wall that says if you can't read at grade level at 4th grade, you're not going to get promoted. You're going to have to go to summer school. If you pass summer school, you move on. If you don't, you're going to have to repeat. And what'll happen is, Johnny, here's what'll happen. The kids that have clear learning disabilities needed the extra year anyway. But many of the other kids that didn't read well or don't, they're going to have parents become actively involved back in their lives, helping to work with them to read, to catch up, and we're gonna catch up. These kids are gonna be okay. Those two things are big, Johnny. Big.
And is kid left behind? Is that where we're at? Where we just passing them along like that, and they can't read?
No Child Left Behind was another one to. No Child Left Behind was a was a really good on paper, but unintended consequences, because it basically said that you're promoting these kids. We don't want any kid really to be left behind. We can give them the services they need, but we're going to promote you. We're going to incentivize keeping kids moving forward. That's what it did. So it looked good on paper, but it ended up being a mistake. So, hey, I'm walking inside. I'm okay, but I got to get my phone plugged in because it's going to quit on me.
Yeah. And somebody just asked a question here from here. When you said going back to basic nowadays, they call that capital punch. And I remember a time when the principal would paddle you. Yeah, you used to get spankings if you wasn't able to
Hey,
perform.
been there and done it. Been there and had it, not done it. Been there and had it. It is what it is. Now, I don't necessarily, when it comes to discipline, because when I said back to basics, I was talking about, we made reading so complicated that you had to have some kind of fancy degree to teach reading. I said back to basics is as simple as your grandmother with you sitting on the lap and you teaching and them teaching you to read. We got away from that. We got into the science, too technical aspect of it. And I said, we need to go back to the simplistic form of doing things, is what I said. But when it comes to behavior, again, yeah, you know what? Kids want structure and accountability. It is maybe capital, spanking a kid isn't what we need to do, but we definitely need to let them know that when you act a fool in a classroom, there's consequences, and those consequences can be significant, right? Here's the last thing. I do not want to do this. This is what I tell folks all the time. We got to get to a business model where suspension, the only time a child gets suspended is when they've broken a law, not a rule of law. They're suspended out of school. The only time you get suspended out of school when you're not legally allowed to come to school, right? But I want to use suspension in school in a robust way, right? I want to say to the child and to the parents, your child has disrupted this classroom today and has done it consistently. And so your child is no longer welcome in this class until your child figures it out. And what are we going to do about it? They're going to go to this secondary location in the school where we can provide the ancillary services with specialists, like a special education teacher, a behavioral specialist, a school psychologist, whomever needs to be in that child's life, but they need to stay in that secondary classroom until we can be assured that the child is not going to disrupt the learning for the others anymore. Right. And that's going to help that child. That's what I see being it. We don't need out of school. Why do you suspend a kid out of school 3 days, right? Then bring them back to the same classroom they disrupted and let them make up all their work and let them start right back over where they left off. What is that teaching a child? You gave them 3 days vacation, then they get to come back.
Right.
What do we do?
There's no benefit for that. And, the kid's going to keep doing it if they want to get that break out of school anyway. What happened to that in-school suspension? Do we not do that anymore?
So we do suspend out more. Well, there's different things going on. This is a complicated situation we got going on right now. So the in-school suspension that I used to run at Poly, where it was a demerit system. So let's say you came to school late 3 times, you got 10 demerits. Let's say you got caught in a mild altercation in the lunchroom, you got 20. Now you got 30 demerits. Let's say you started a fight. Now you've got 50. Now, when you get to 50, when you get to 30, you get brought in, your counselor, the teacher, the principal, all talk to you about your demerits. When you get to 50, not only is the counselor, the principal, but your parents there now. And you're also being told, your parents being told, when your son gets to 80 demerits, they're going to go to the in-school suspension. That is an extended, say, 6 to 9 weeks. Your child's going to stay there, We're going to bring the educational resources to your child, and we're hopefully going to work with your child to modify their behavior so that they can work in the school system and be free to move. Right now, we don't have that system in place. Typically, what we have, well, I should say we don't have it in enough of a robust measure. What we have a lot of is a singular classroom. Students go there, they kind of get a break from the classroom for the day or for the week or whatever it is. But I want the full scope of training to come with it. I need the specialist in that room to help that child when they're in that space. I don't want it to just be one teacher, child sitting there at a desk, kind of killing clock. I don't want that. I want the training to come with it, the education to come with it, but I also want the learned behavior to come with it, which is you cannot disrupt the school anymore. We're not going to let you turn the classroom into your, playgrounds. There's other children that want to learn and need to learn.
Yeah. And tell me, is the schools funded on the behavior, not the behavior, but on the how many kids are graduating or progressing in that school, or are they everybody's funded the same?
Well, I mean, the schools are funded on a unit count. The unit count is based on a head count, right? So the number of students that you have produces a unit, and the total units gives you your overall operational budget that the state provides for you, and at the state level anyway. There is not I guess a higher percentage. So you reach 90% graduation rate, so you get a bonus from the state. There's none of that. It's more along the lines of you have that many people still remaining in your school to count as a head count, which gives you more funding opportunities. So every unit count that you have in a specialty space, maybe special education, something like that, doesn't just pay for an extra teacher. It can also pay for an extra specialist in that area. It might end up paying for another administrator, depending on how many unit counts you have. So the graduation rate itself isn't directly tied to more funding, like a specific, you get this number, you get this much money.
Okay.
But it is related, right? Because again, the more students you have in school and you keep in school, the more money you have to teach that student and other students.
That makes sense for it.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be some type of system there to reward the success of those students. That's really, your graduation rate, to make it more appropriate for how they're funded.
The problem with using the graduation as the gold standard, that's where we got into this mess, right? Does it make sense that we have school districts with 86, 96% graduation rates when we're, in the bottom 5% when it comes to schools and testing? What does that say? How are these kids actually passing then? If we're not doing well on state tests for math, reading, or SATs, but I've already argued the SAT is a bad test, but when we're using that as the basis for knowledge, how does that make sense that these students we have such a high graduation rate when they have such a low literacy rate?
Right. Yes.
Right. There's a flaw then. There has to be a flaw then.
Right.
The goal shouldn't necessarily be graduation rates. It should be proficiency in the graduates, in those that are graduating.
Which makes sense. Which makes
Right.
sense to be able to kind of have a count on what they're doing, because anybody can graduate.
Right on. Well, in this day and age, yeah. It's like a participation trophy now. I mean, that's almost what we're doing. You got to earn it, and we're not. We're graduating kids that are just participating. They're not technically earning it. And I go fall back to, I just believe in the child. I think the child at an early age, if you implement robust accountability, these guys will figure it out. One of the reasons our kids are struggling is our kids are starting school earlier than ever. And at the same time, we we added rigor to our classrooms in a very basic way by taking a 5th grade curriculum, old school curriculum, and we basically moved that to 4th grade. Then we took the 4th grade curriculum and gave it to our 3rd grades. We took 3rd grade, gave it to second gave it to 1st. And we said, see, if we can get our 1st graders to actually learn 2nd grade curriculum, they're going to be smarter. And what happened was, what we began to see was we had our children begin to fall behind, not because they're developmentally delayed, but because they're developmentally appropriate in their learning, and they weren't ready for that type of rigor. And you have challenged them, because if you're an educator, one of the things you'll appreciate, and dealing with athletes, there's a big difference between a young 7-year-old in your classroom and an old 7-year-old in your classroom. Big difference. If you're talking about athletes, if you got a group of 9 and 10-year-olds, you can pick out the ones that are fresh 9-year-olds and those that are old 9-year-olds. We're doing the same thing in our classrooms. We've taken young 8-year-olds and we've not just introduced them to a 3rd grade curriculum. We've actually now given them a 4th grade curriculum, and they're 1 month away from being in 2nd grade because of their age. So these kids are falling behind, and now you're saying, well, they don't know. They're not smart. They're not learning. They're fine. You just giving them stuff too soon, and you don't understand that. You think they should catch up. Well, that's a real problem for kids coming through environments that are difficult, or not just environments that are difficult. I'm talking about just in general.
Right. Do you think the teachers play a role in this whole situation sometime as well?
Teachers are the key to the success if you just let them teach. If we would get out of their way, we got to deregulate the classroom. This teaching profession is the only profession where you go to school for 4 years. You have to get certified. You have to go through all these, you go through your student teachings and all that stuff, only to get put in a class and then be told how to teach again. I don't understand it. I've earned the degree. I have my job. I know what I'm supposed to do. Leave me alone. Let me do it. Hey, and then check in from time to time. And if I'm not doing my job, hold me accountable. But I've got my curriculum. I know my mission. Trust me to do it. And support me when I say that little Johnny over here isn't handling this stuff and Johnny can't hang right now. He has to do something else. Because all these other kids here, the train stopped because I had to deal with this again. And what they want is they want the teacher to not just teach in elementary, and I use elementary because that's where the rubber's hitting the road, to not just teach the elementary curriculum. They want that teacher to be the attendance officer, call home when there's truancy. They want the teacher to be the mental health care professional. They want the teacher to be the disciplinarian. They want the teacher to be the go-between between the school and the parent, not just the parent of the one child, the parent of all 30 children. They're the ones, they got to do it all. And I'm telling you, that's the rub, man. So yeah, I think the teacher is vitally important to this space. But at the end of the day, you got to put them back in charge, expect them to do their job, and check in.
Do you think compensation is an issue too?
We are, as a state, moving in a direction that is going to be a very fair pay state for education. I can say that because I sit on the funding commission, I sit on the joint finance commission, and I'm a former educator, right? I love the teachers. I want to pay them, but we have to recognize I can't pay you the same as I do a doctor. Is your role in your space important? Yeah. But we got to understand there's a budget out there and we got to be able to afford it. And I think when you combine the fact that when our pay rate eventually is going to be $60K for a starting teacher, that means that a teacher teaching 10, 15 years is going to be up, and when they get their masters and all that, you're talking about teachers making 80, 85 grand a year for a 9-month a year, for a 9, 10 month or 10-month a year contract. Right. So you're getting paid 188 days and you're getting 85 grand to do it. What am I saying? I'm not trying to upset the educators if they're listening. I've been there and done it. What I am trying to say is we have to understand there's a limit to what we can pay. And I think this state is moving in that direction. What the numbers I just told you won't lie. We're going to get there in like 2 years. And what you're going to see is a very fair compensation package. Let me make sure I say this, though, because I've said it before. You can't pay a teacher enough to stay in a classroom where they feel underappreciated by the administration, where they feel like there's too much regulation, where they feel unsafe, when they feel disrespected by the children they're teaching and the parents in those children's lives. If we don't have that, I don't know. I don't care who you are. Who's going to want to stay in that classroom? We don't want teachers staying in the classroom just for the money. We've got to bring back the joy of teaching. And the only way you do that is you handle business accountability, making sure the teacher has control of the classroom, trust them to do their job.
Yeah. And Mr. Dickerson gave us a question a minute ago. And he said, nowadays, the only incentive in the NIL is paying kids to play if they have their own way decent, which is a big mistake on college athletes. I'll say, yeah. And we paying these college athletes to play ball now, which, I guess it incentivizes what we're doing and how we're doing it, and it makes sense. But sometimes we lose academics in that too.
It's that NIL thing to me is the biggest mistake you can make, and we're making it, and you're seeing it. You got professional athletes now; they've lost their mission. It's not remember it was always student athlete. Not anymore. Not any. You can't have NIL and tell me it's student athlete anymore. Not at the college level. The only reason I've seen it at the high school level is because Delaware is too small. We're seeing it. It's called Sally's. It's called Slasianum. The haves and the have-nots. The good news is you're seeing some. The kids that are getting their opportunity to experience private schools that are coming out of these inner cities, and that's wonderful. But it's less than 0.1%, right? That are experiencing that. The remaining kids aren't experiencing NIL in these schools. But when you talk about college athletics and NIL, I wrote a letter on it, letter to the editor, and I spoke at a conference about it. The bottom line is, we have lost our way because it is, you see the transfer portal and the NIL. There is no question that it benefits a percentage of college athletes. But what about the 80% that it doesn't even consider?
Right.
How do you deal with that? It's not even 80%. It's 1%. The elite athletes are getting good money. You see it in college and in football and basketball. But there's thousands out there that'll never sniff it. But the sport itself is being kind of
manipulated,
man. It's just being kind of train wrecked because of that. I don't support it.
Yeah, and you can't do that, because you just seem like you have the students there, and you're going to have them not there for the purpose of athletics and academics, but just for athletics.
Exactly. Well, you are. You see these guys transferring. They're transferring schools every year. They're not staying. Right. Why? Because NIL.
Right.
They're getting offered money to go play somewhere else, man. It's a professional sport. It's good if you can get it. For those slim amount of people that can get it. I mean, game on for them. But the ones that don't, it's just ruining the sport. I mean, look at Michigan. Come on now. I mean, God bless them. They won. But is that a team or is that an all-star team?
Right.
Huh? I mean, you saw it, right? You saw, I think the starting five, all five last year didn't know each other. Right. And now look, they're national champs. I mean, I guess, but
and I think if you're going to do that, I mean, the bigger school's going to have the more money anyway. Your Michigans, your Dukes, your North Carolinas, for that, your Connecticut's and stuff. But
the Power Four is the only ones that are paying NIL. Those are the Power Four conferences, the Big Four. It used to be 5-4, but they're the only ones that are paying NIL right now, right? The rest of these schools aren't doing any of that kind of stuff, man. I mean, unless you're talking about giving them a little scratch of $500 or something. And here's the
Right.
big problem. The only ways the Delawares, Del States, and those places are going to compete is the fear is you're going to jettison some of what I call the Olympic sports, the sports that are non-revenue generators that cost money to operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that are going to be cut so that these schools in the smaller conferences are
Mm-hmm.
able to generate enough income to pay the athletes. So you're going to see, track go away. You're going to see wrestling go away. You're going to see, some of these other
Right.
non-generating, volleyballs, whatever. And that's a real fear factor.
Right.
That's not, selfishly, that's not what we want. We want amateur athletics where it seems like it's a level playing field, and we want it in a diverse space, meaning different types of sports,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah, and that will make sense and for that. But the big question we want to ask you is the change for Delaware. We see so much stuff happen in Delaware now. What do you think is our three key things that we probably need to change to be back to an elite state?
That's a great question, man. I think the leadership we have right now, maybe it's picking a fight, maybe it's not, needs to get Delaware focused again, right? We
Mhm.
got to stop picking a fight with national players and start looking out for Delaware. So when you talk about corporations and you're talking about industry coming in here, what they like to see is a settled kind of calm leadership that's inviting to these
Mhm.
corporations and isn't picking fights and targeting them. That's probably number one. It's not the number one, but that's one of them. We
Mhm.
have got to figure out this educational problem that we find ourselves in, because industry and others looking at the state of Delaware, they see the rankings, they don't like the rankings, and they're not going to bring their children here. We're not going to start companies where they're trying to attract skilled labor or high dollar labor where they believe the public school systems are failing. We've got to fix that. And I think we can. We go back to the basics. You
Mhm.
get back to the simplistic form, and
Right.
we can do that. Put teachers in charge. And those two things are there. And then I think the last thing is we need balance. And selfishly, as a Republican state senator, one of the problems we have, at least from my seat, is that when you have a super majority, when you have one party rule for 30 years, and
Mm.
that's what we have now, and for the last 20, it's been highly super majority. When you have that, there's no balance, right? There's no compromise. There's no recognizing that Delaware isn't just Newcastle, right? That
Mhm.
it's the entirety of the state. And whatever, black, white, yellow, brown, doesn't matter, that we're all one when it comes to Delaware, that we all have our uniqueness, but we all want to work together. Right now we don't have a lot of that, because you don't have to. When one party's in charge, they kind of dominate the space. They get to dominate the what they see as change or needs. And
Mhm.
in my opinion, that's when you get the inflated budget that we kind of have had in that last couple of years. That's what you get when you have educational decisions which are have challenged our success, and that's what you get when you look at corporations that are leaving the state to incorporate in other areas. And that's a real big challenge that we have, because that money then leaves with it. And that's, we're spending a lot. If we don't find a way to pay for it, the only way you pay for it then is take more money out of your pocket and mine. That's the
Right.
only way it works.
Right. For that, and that's key. We have to see a way that we can get along together. We can work together. Robert Dickinson, don't forget about the tax base. If you ain't got a strong tax base the pay students. I mean, they pay the teachers, athletic directors, and all that is a struggle. And yeah, if we don't have a strong tax base, that's going to be another issue. But I think in a nutshell, we need to look at how we spend money.
So, hey, let me jump on that real quick because my man, it was Rob that was just talking. He
Yeah.
left you a message.
Yep.
Because he's not wrong, man. Here's what I want you to appreciate, though. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
instead of creating NIL, which only benefits a few, what we should have done with the NCAA is
Mm-hmm.
basically say that your rules and restrictions, which limits the amount of money that a student can generate, earn, be gifted, all those things. That's where the problem was. You had five-star athletes coming from inner cities, going to big universities that couldn't keep up with the demands because they didn't have any income. They didn't have money coming from home like maybe their
Right.
roommate did, right? And yeah, they were on a $100,000 scholarship, and yeah, their room was paid, and yeah, they had food, but they had no ancillary money. What we should have done was required these big schools and the NCAA, because they're making billions, to pay the athlete themselves, but a stipend. That way it's
Right.
fair for everybody. If you're the backup, you got the same as the starter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But instead of it being free meal and free books, it was, which is big. It's free meal, it's free books. It's really not free because you're earning it as an athlete, but you also get, I don't know, $2,000 a month stipend as an athlete to pay for, whatever the heck you want. That's what we should have done. We didn't. We created NIL because, we wanted to kind of say the NAA, the NC, the NCAA that, you're making all this money, you need to share the love. And if you don't, then we're going to create a way for the athletes to make money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like what he's saying. He's not wrong.
Right. For it, and it makes sense for it, and we need to consider. DSU had a great year this year. Playing
Yep.
that football. And that hats off to DSU with that. But we need to like you said, get back to the basics. We need to probably have a little splitting here of the leadership. We do need some changes. At some point in time, people have to sit down.
Yeah. 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 And you're not wrong. The problem, one of the things you have at the state level is, I call it life calluses. We've had quite a few influential elected people come to the Senate, come to the House, that are now in other positions of power. And no disrespect, but if you look at their life history and their stories, there's not a lot of calluses there, right?
Mhm.
It's all academic. I went to a very, kind of an elite high school, into an elite college, into a, elite position, whatever it might be. It might be activist or something like that, or it might be some high level position that you got. And then you run for state office at a very young age, and now you're a lawmaker. And
Mm.
everything you do is based off of what you think you want, right? So it's based
Mhm.
off of what makes you feel better. What I want to help this particular the children that are struggling. I want to help them, so I'm going to do this. But it's not coming from a place of experience. They've not lived it. They just feel it. And what
Mm.
happens when you make decisions based off feelings, you tend to get it wrong, because
Mhm.
it feels good. Everything I want to do because it feels good. It makes me, I think I'm making that person feel better. Well,
Right.
I don't agree, man. I think really when you have life experiences, you realize that sometimes your feelings are separate from your decisions.
Right. Right.
What you feel, what you want to do is different than what you need to do. And a lot of elected officials right now are they're doing it based on feel good, and we're getting it wrong. We just are.
Yeah, and we got to get it right. We got to keep our state abreast. We got to make sure that we doing the right thing. And I know it's not always popular to
You're
do
right.
the right thing. It's not
You're
popular,
right.
but it has to make sense for us to be back and be in a good situation
Yeah.
for it. And I tell folks that every day. It's not always red and blue and Republican, Democrat. What's the right thing to do?
Yes.
and how do we get it right? How do we support what we're trying to do and reach the people and get the point across?
Exactly. It really comes down to that. We see on national TV the games that they play at the national level. But when you come around here in Delaware, it really shouldn't be that way, man. It should just be, what's the problem? What are you asking me to do? Then I can make a decision. It's not, what's my party think, But a
Yeah.
lot of that we try to, I see it in our leadership here, where we kind of try to get caught up in the national politics, and that doesn't help us right now. We got Delaware problems. We need to be fixing them with Delaware people, and we can.
That's it. We can. We
Yep.
can, and these folks is we're gonna get it right. I'm being optimistic that we're gonna get it right. We're gonna see some change happen, and it's gonna
Amen.
be positive that we change our state back to being historically better than it was
Yep.
year before, for it and stuff. And it's always interesting. If we didn't have these challenges, I feel that we would still be sitting and accepting stuff as it is. But now we're growing. We see folks moving in from New York, New Jersey, wherever,
Yeah.
and we're coming here, but we're coming here with a great understanding that, hey, Delaware can be a great state.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do we get it there? How do we clean up some of the stuff that we have? And guess what? Make it feasible for folks.
Amen.
I was telling some entrepreneurs last night, you got to get excited about the change that's going to happen, because once you're uncomfortable, success is on its way.
Amen.
Success is not a comfortable type of situation where what's going to happen. It's going to be very uncomfortable to where you grow, you lift it up, you start to rejuvenate, and you grab your energy and you go.
Amen to that. Hey, let me ask you something that might switch gears. I was in Wilmington today, and I met with a group that came up with a vision to utilize the kitchens of churches. So you have old church, historical churches, whatever, and they tend to have these almost commercial kitchens in their basements, for lack of a better location. And what they did was they identified 4, and they created almost an incubator hub, which basically said that you apply to this group, and if you're accepted, you pay a fee. It's a very reduced fee to have a membership to use the church kitchen to produce your product. I was in there today, and they had a group. They were making bread and muffins that they sell to local industries. And they said they were full. They were maxed out as far as staff goes in the 4 kitchens, and they had 100+ new businesses wanting to get in. That's an interesting model, man. I could see that working down here.
Yeah, that'd be excellent.
It would be cool if you had people like that. They want to sell their cookies. They want to sell bread. I had some people talking about they were making wedding cakes. Someone else they were doing. One lady was making butter, and literally she's called the butter lady. But I really thought, as an industry, I thought it was like almost a business hub where you could get these folks to be able to use the kitchen to produce a product that supported their business that they could sell in the community, with these spaces that are basically dormant. A lot of these churches aren't using this space anymore. So
that's excellent. That's an excellent opportunity for them to kind of have that. And we need to pass that on to some of these churches and stuff to get that going, because that's another way to make money. That's generating income within our state to keep growing.
It supports people who are looking. Yeah, there's people that basically are doing this out of their kitchens. They're kind of not legal. They can use the hub at a church basement, which they had the 4 up there, to produce, to support their business. And then they take it out to these local farmers markets, and they can deliver them to, I don't know, events that they're supporting. It was really cool. And it was a business model of sorts, supporting small business, almost side hustles for folks, which is important, man. When you talk about earning 2 jobs, working 2 jobs to make ends meet, that's not always a negative.
That's right. Right. It's a positive. And folks, man, I always thank you for coming on.
Amen.
And man, thank you for your knowledge and your hard work and your putting that pound in the pavement to make this happen.
Well, I'm trying.
And folks, we thank y'all for tuning in this week. Again, Senator Buxton, we still trying to move forward and thinking positive that we're going to move Delaware forward in a positive way if we just think about it, start working together and getting it going. Until next week, this Creative Financing with JB. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and thanks for tuning in.